Hi, I'm Wanda with Jimmy Branch Homestead, and today I have so much work to do in the garden. So I'm going to start off by picking raspberries. So if you have not been watching our channel, my raspberries are actually in a repurposed dog kennel. And inside the dog kennel, I have a foot deep, foot wide raised bed, 12 inches high, all the way around, except for the doorway. So I had these all cleaned up and tied back in early spring, but they've gotten away from me and I haven't got them tied up again. So, as you might be able to see, I have a jungle in here. So we're going to start off by picking the berries. So I'm going to go ahead and get all these picked, since you probably won't be able to actually see me in this jungle, and then I'll come back with you. Probably 1.5 pints of raspberries. Oops. And I got the raspberry plants tied up. That's what was taking me so long, so that now I can actually walk from one to the end to the other, as long as I can try and keep up on them. I really did a good job this spring, and then I just got so busy I didn't get back to it, and unfortunately they grew through the fence and everything. So these you see here aren't quite ripe. Hopefully you can see that. So probably in about a day, 2 at the most, I should have a few ripe again. And I have plenty of raspberry jam already from last year. So this year I really am going to concentrate on, A, I like them fresh, and B, freeze drying a lot, so that in the winter time I have raspberries that are freeze dried that I can eat on my cold cereal or hot cereal. I just love them that way. And I really had to ration last year because I only had like 1 and a pint. So they go pretty fast because, okay, I just picked blackberries and raspberries, but I didn't get through all the raspberries last night. So there won't be many. I still have black ones that have red spots on them. They're much sweeter if I wait till they are completely black. You touch them, if they're snug, you leave them. They're not quite ripe. Several hours. Okay, so every couple days I need to come through and make sure that my cucumbers are trailing up. And so I've kind of started on the first few already, so they don't just go through and then go out on the ground on the other side. They'll have to at least go up, and then we'll... And I was doing the same thing on the way back with the green beans. These are climbing. These are pole beans, blue lake pole beans. I planted them, I think, about 3 weeks ago. So as the peas next door come out, I'm going to plant those with green beans too, because we're completely out of green beans on the pantry shelf. So I'd like to have at least 2 rows longer. Okay, so that's it for this row. Okay, so here I'm putting clips around. Let's see, hopefully you can see that. To keep the tomatoes staked in the middle. Even though I have tomato cages, they still kind of go all over. Now, another thing I'm going to do, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get to it today or not, is to put little ropes from the top of the greenhouse hanging down that I can clip these on, because these tomatoes are going to grow all the way up. They're not going to just stay down here in the cages. And another thing I do is, and I've already done it on these, is I either cut off or break off all the bottom branches. If they start looking diseased at all, turning yellow, then they come off. And also if they're touching the ground or near the ground. It helps to keep a lot of the insects off. And then the energy goes more to the plant. Another thing I want to point out is I do not cut all the runners off. I tried that one year, and I tell you what, I did not have a very good harvest. So, you know, I learned to do that on YouTube, and I tried it, didn't like it, so I don't cut all the runners off. If I get way too many, I may cut some of them off. But you can see, here's a runner with lots of tomatoes, here's a runner with lots of tomatoes, here's one, you know, so I would be losing a lot of tomatoes if I just cut them all off. And down here, for companion planting, these are basil. I need to get in here and harvest them, cut them back, freeze dry them. Huge over here, starting to go to seed at the top, flowering at the top, so I really need to get these harvested. And I'll harvest them down quite a ways, but they will come back, and they'll come back bushier. Look at this beautiful clump of tomatoes in here. I'm really excited. I actually started all these tomato plants in the house in February. So I don't have stakes in all of them I see. Now the two tomatoes over here at the end, these are a cherry tomato, but this one and this one. And you can see it's getting pretty bushy and on this one, on these two actually, I have like a small round tomato cage inside here. And then I put the big square one around it, and that's because it's the cherry tomatoes. So lots and lots of blooms on these tomatoes. We'll be very excited to start getting these for salads. See, lots of different trees in here from this plant. Cherry tomatoes are very prolific. I do a lot of freeze drying of them too. I'll cut them in half and freeze dry them. And see, this one's starting to look diseased, kind of turn yellow. You want to just get rid of those. Another thing you're looking for is tomato hornworms. They're a green, ugly, they can get really fat. They can get like, I don't know, 3-4 inches long and almost an inch, 3/4 of an inch thick. And usually what I do is once I start seeing them, I check every day and I get like a little half-gallon jug with the top cut part way out, full of water and dish soap. And then I just kind of get a little ice cream stick or something and knock them in there, and it just kills them. They drown in the soapy water. And then I discard them. Okay, here I've used small tomato cages. This one was pretty much out here by itself, so I just put one over the top of it. But I have plants where I have 3 or 4 in the tub. So I'm trying this out. We'll see. I'm putting the tomato cage in the middle, and then they can kind of grow up against it for bracing. If I need to, then I can use some of the garden tape, the plastic tape, and kind of hold them up that way. And I'm excited because they are just loaded with blooms. Okay, so I came out yesterday, and this one here has a head of cauliflower in it about this big. So what I did is I've kind of pulled up the leaves over the top of it and tied a little knot in it, and that just helps to keep the sun off the head itself, so it doesn't turn brown. And then I have some more heads trying to start, so hopefully they will. If you look close, The bugs really got to the outer leaves. I also have some cabbage over here. Let's see if I can. And again, the bugs really got to the outer leaves, but I'm hoping that it's just to the outer ones and the inside will be good heads. So I'll just have to wait until they're done to find out. So I have two different kinds of cabbage here. The one is tighter heads like this, smaller, tighter heads. So these will be done before too long, these two. And then I have some that are a looser head. They're bigger, but they're a looser leaf head to the cabbage. And that's those down there. So I'm just kind of keeping an eye on everything. I do need to give everything a good water today. But, oh, look at that. I've got a tomato over there turning yellow. Let me take you over there and I'll show you. Okay, so this one here is turning yellow on the top. Oh, that one's barely starting over there. And again, these leaves that start turning yellow, I got to get them off there. So typically what I do is go right up on the top of them and break them down. You want to make sure not to pull the skin down on the trunk. And you can kind of see, let me turn over here on the ground. I've been doing a lot of cleanup. I took out the lettuce from up there by the giant kale. And I have trimmed up a lot of the bottoms of these tomatoes, getting the bad looking leaves off. So that's a mess I'll need to clean up off the ground. But if we come over here, look at this giant kale. I really need to harvest it for, the smaller leaves are best in the salads, and the bigger leaves will be great for like smoothies. As I mentioned, I pulled all the lettuces out here, and the bugs don't seem to bother the kale so much. So, looky over here. This is the banana peppers. How exciting is that? Yeah, that one can get a little bigger. So, oh, there's one back in there. So the banana peppers seem to grow much quicker as far as producing the peppers than the other sweet peppers. There's lots of blossoms on all of these, so they'll be producing for quite some time. Those down here on the other end, that row and a half is green bell peppers. When I freeze dry, I love to have the yellow, the red, the green, all diced and mixed together. It looks so pretty in the jar. So again, on the peppers, some of the things I've been doing is you need to make sure you pick up any discolored or fallen leaves to keep out disease. And I often just pull off all of the lower leaves. It helps to keep the infestations down and the disease too. But even the upper ones, if they look like this and they're starting to turn color, they need to come off. And that will help to improve the health of the plant. The other one is just over there, just a tiny little thing. So I may just throw some more seeds in here and see if they take. We really enjoyed the zucchini. And then those squash over here, these are the yellow squash. And they're getting lots of blossoms on them. I have been picking the bugs off them already. the squash beetles. So, always lots to do in the garden. I have about a load of stuff ready for the freeze dryer, but I really need to get in here and harvest. This is the peppermint, and this is the lemon balm. And now these are coming to flower. These are the chamomile for tea. So these three I raised just for tea. But you can also do like an iced tea or a mint water or something like that too. They're great. Okay, so I'm having trouble keeping this cage standing. So what I'm going to do is take some of these fabric staples and get back, Tippy. Staple around the base here. I had one or two, but it wasn't enough to keep it upright. Get back, Tippy. So, we will try that. These are large tomato cages turned upside down to give it a little more stability. And then I have the shorter, like pepper ones or short tomato ones for like determinate bushes. That I'm putting on top of here, and then I'll put another one upside down here and zip tie it like I did over here. And I'll need to get some more zip ties for that too. Okay. Let's see, I'm not sure if you can see the ground there or not, but okay, so these cucumbers I'm going to keep and put in the house. They're about an inch and a half thick. And this one got missed and carried away. So it's going to get cut in fourths, lengthwise and then crosswise, and fed to my chickens. They just love fresh cucumbers. Okay, so next up is my tomatoes. And I have a few more branches coming with rusted and yellow on them. So I am going to cut them off right at the stem. And I also see I have aphids on this plant. So I can't do it today because it's going to be raining still. But tomorrow I'll come out with a mixture of Dawn's soap and water and spray it on it. It's really good for aphids, and you can even put about a tablespoon of vinegar in it, and that really helps as well. That one looks pretty good now. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to feed it about 3 tablespoons of kelp meal. You can also use seaweed spray. I haven't been able to find that. I did find this on Amazon. So I'm not going to have enough to thoroughly do everything I'd like to, but we're going to use what we have. Tomatoes and peppers love soil that's high in nitrogen. So a nitrogen or like a regular tomato plant food would work well. And we'll move on to, and that's a pretty healthy plant, but if you can see here on the tip, it's getting some rust and some yellow on it. We're going to get rid of that. And this one's getting pretty bad. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention. Whenever you have any disease type plant leaves or anything, and you'll see that when I get over to the peppers, I've got some bacterial black spot going on. Do not put that in your compost. It will, you know, make your compost bad. It'll just kind of continue that bacterial infection, so to speak, throughout your compost. Another thing about cutting off the excess leaves on the tomatoes, it will help the energy to go towards the fruits more than the leafing. So if a plant has way too many runners, like this one has a lot already, and I've cut like 3 of the smaller ones off because it'll be too much energy again going into the plant versus the fruit. Okay, so I got all of the tomatoes done in the greenhouse, and the peppers in the back row up behind the tomatoes. Oops, here's one more. So what I'm doing to the peppers is I'm taking off any black spot type leaves, so any disease leaves or insect leaves that's been eaten up, I'm removing them. And I'm removing any fallen leaves in the pots, because if they have black spot and they fall in the pots, it's going to contaminate that soil. And not only this year will it continue, but next year when I plant something in it, the soil will be contaminated with that black spot, that bacterial black spot. So I only have 4 more pots in here to do. 2 of them look great. All I'm going to do is take off the bottom leaves. So on all my pepper plants, I take off the bottom leaves. It helps to put the energy towards the production of more blossoms and more fruit. And it also helps to keep the insects from climbing up any that might be touching the ground, which also could cause the black spot infection. So let me turn this camera around and see if you can see this pot. Hopefully you can here. Let me put it back just, oops. There, hopefully. And what I'm going to do is, again, I'm taking off any of the bottom ones, even if they're not diseased, just because it helps to put the energy towards the top of the plant and the fruits. And then this one, see, it has yellow with the black spot. Part of the yellow is because it needs nutrition, but there is black spot in it, so we want to treat it like it has that too. And again, what I'm doing to do that is feeding them when it's not going to rain, because it's supposed to rain and possibly storm today. So I can't spray the plants because it'll just wash them off. All my work. So I don't know if you can see this, but there's quite a few leaves that's falling on the ground. I got to get them out of there. I'm going to go behind. I'm hoping they do fine. We'll see. Okay. Now, front here in the middle and in the back, I have quite the mess, as you can see, that I will need to clean up. Again, this is not going to go in the compost because there are insects and diseased leaves, so I don't want to spread that throughout my compost. I will use the shop broom and sweep this up and put it in the trash in a trash bag. Moving on to the raised beds outside the greenhouse. So I have not had good luck with my brassicas this spring. Lots of worms from the little white moths that lay the eggs, and then they turn into these little green worms. And I also seen some little dark striped ones. And now I even have some tiny little black bugs. And we're trying to organic garden, so I seen some heads coming, thought I was hopeful that we'd have some luck. But it looks like the bugs are beating me out. So what I'll end up doing if I'm not able to salvage any for our consumption is I'll just pull up the whole plant and give it to the chickens. They'll eat the leaves and the fruits off of it, and they'll eat the bugs and the worms. So I have tried, and that worked for a while, spraying with water, a good pressure water, and spraying the green worms off, and then I picked them all up off the ground and fed them to the chickens. And that worked for a week or two, but I guess I didn't do it often enough. So I'm probably not going to plant these again in the spring, but I am going to try and start some this fall for growing over the winter in my greenhouse. We typically have very mild winters here. If it does get cold, it doesn't get cold then for more than a night or two usually. And I'll put frost blankets over the rows to protect that. But the bugs just are really frustrating me. So this is probably going to be a total loss. I have some nice heads of cabbage, but there is holes all over in it. I don't know if it's just in the outer layers, so I'm going to let it continue to grow, and I'll pull off the outers and see if it's all through it. Again, the chickens will get them. I do have some broccoli heading nicely, and this has just happened over the last few days. I'm hoping the bugs don't get in it because they're looking pretty well. This one I just kind of pulled over to keep the sun directly off it. Oops, I can't see if you can see that. So they do need fed because they're looking kind of anemic. So I'll try and get that done today too. These do have some netting over it, and it was really helping. But it looks like, oh, see, the white moss got in there. So I might as well take the netting off because them darn things are eating up my broccoli in here, and it started to produce little heads. The one thing that did very well is my giant kale. I guess the bugs don't like the taste of it because it's not buggy. And over here I have my banana peppers and my green peppers, my green bells. I don't plant hot peppers because we don't care for them, either one of us. And as you can see, I'm having some black spot going on with that too. So I need to get all of these leaves picked up and trimmed off, and I have some banana peppers, several it looks like, that I need to harvest off of these plants. Another thing I do every day when I'm out in the garden, I have one zucchini plant that survives, so I need to plant some more. And these are my yellow summer squash. And all of the squash, the darn squash bugs, just love them. I planted them in a total different place this year, hoping I'd have better luck. But every day I come out and I pull squash bugs off and smash them, trying to keep them from being infested. I did find a few leaves that I removed that were covered, that had, they're little tiny copper spots, and those are the eggs of the squash bugs. So if you see those, you'll want to remove those leaves and burn them. And don't put them in your compost either, because then you're going to have squash bugs in your future compost. So let me show you up close. Hopefully you'll be able to see it on the camera. But there's little red spots here on this leaf. Those are the eggs of the squash bugs. And boy, if you let them get away from you, they will be so infested so quickly that they're going to eat a lot more of it than what you're going to get, and it'll kill your squash plants. So I will also feed this to the chickens. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clean up this bed with the black spot. I'm not going to do it on camera since I already showed you over in the greenhouse, but we'll get this cleaned up and we'll be back. Okay, so I have cleaned up all the bell peppers, weeded the bed and the squash beds, harvested the big peppers. I took off the netting off this broccoli, so hopefully it can continue to grow. I've cleaned off some of the leaves around this broccoli that had worms and bugs on them. I'll be harvesting this soon before the bugs actually get in the heads. I have my Amish paste tomatoes over here that I cleaned up all the leaves on them. They're pretty dry. The tomatoes are. They drink a lot more than the other plants. So I may water them once I get this mess cleaned up. But I do have a mess to clean up. I started cleaning off some of the leaves off my cauliflower just to see if we can luck out and get any. I'll have to keep an eye on it. One of the things that is really helpful, and I should have did it because I even have some of it, is diatomaceous earth. To the bugs and worms, it has like little, it's a powder, but when you spray it on your plants, and it's organic, so that would be a solution, but it has like little sharp edges in the powder that will cut up the worms and stuff so they don't like it. So maybe when I finish cleaning up this stuff, I'll spray some of that on it. I say spray, but it's not a liquid, it's a powder. You have a little poofer that comes in the bag with it, and you just fill up the poofer and kind of, if I get a chance I'll show you, but that gets the powder all over it. But again, I don't really want to do it today because it would be waste if it rains tonight like they're saying. So far it's just barely sprinkled off and on. It's about 3:20 in the afternoon. So what I'm going to try and do is go get all the greenery mess cleaned up that I made, because it's even harder once it kind of turns brown. It's easier to sweep up when it's green. So I'll put the camera over here and we will get this mess cleaned up. This is my greenhouse. It's not finished. Doesn't have a roof. Doesn't have the plastic on it. Doesn't have doors on it. It has the ends framed. We'll have to get back to that project, but I still have a chicken coop to build, and Wade will be finishing the pig pen. If you haven't seen Pig Pen Part 1, go back and watch that. We just posted it this week, or last week, by the time you see this. So let me get this mess cleaned up. I have a smaller broom and the shop broom. I already swept along the back to get the bell pepper leaves out of the back and to the front. I'm going to do the same with the other rows. Sweep it all down to the end. And then I can pick it up and put it in plastic bags. think I have some out here. Alrighty. If I don't sweep this up, the stuff will dry out and turn into dirt. And then I'll start having weeds and junk growing up all over the place. So I try to get it cleaned up. I'm not always good at it. One of the other things I really need to get better at is a feeding schedule. I do feed my plants, but it's sporadic. You know, brassicas are heavy feeders. I should be feeding them every 2 weeks. That might be part of the problem. They weakened, and so they were more prone to insects and diseases. And the tomatoes and such, they definitely like fed every couple of weeks to stay nice and green. If you kind of saw where some of the stalks were lighter green and stuff, that's why, because I haven't been good at keeping them fed. So let's get this mess cleaned up. And I'd like to kind of go back after and feed everything. I probably won't show you that because I already showed you how I was doing it. Because if it is going to rain, that'll help get all the feed into the ground. I'm not going to water today. I heavily watered yesterday because it was hot. And I noticed that the raised beds with the peppers and stuff that don't take quite as much water, I watered them really good yesterday and they're still damp. So I don't want to cause root rot. Same thing in the tubs. I noticed the bell peppers in the tubs in the greenhouse were still damp. So they like damp dirt. They don't like soaked dirt. And again, I don't know how much it's going to rain this afternoon or evening or tonight. So if it doesn't rain good and our rain goes away, then tomorrow I will definitely have to water them good again. But I do have a little bit of damage here, about 1/3 of the way down to my weed fabric, because I wanted it down before we built the greenhouse. And when we had trouble straightening up this side of the wall, it put some little holes in it. Now, the reason I have not patched it yet is because we're going to have to go back and put a couple wedges underneath, especially this wall. Our 4x4s on the bottom warped super bad. And so it's been very difficult for us to try and keep this wall level and plumb. So it probably won't be completely, even when we're done. None of our property is level. So it is what it is. You have to deal with what you got. And we'll do it the best we can, but it is a greenhouse, it's not a house. Of course, if it was something like that, we would definitely take the time to level it up a lot more. Okay, and use, of course, better wood. So those red 4x4s that are post, we'll never buy those again. That's what we had trouble with, the severe twisting. We have found that the green pressure-treated wood doesn't seem to do that. It might a little bit, but it doesn't nearly as bad as that red stuff. So just keep that in mind if you decide to do these type of... Okay. So here's the old stuff I took out. I cut it in a couple of pieces just to make it easier on myself to get it out. And here's the last piece. And this here is what blocks the end from leaking. So I need that off the old piece. Oh, I might not be able to get it through that way. So I can pull it on through this way. There we go. Now that is the old piece. So what I have to do then is slide this over the end. And I do it up a few inches to allow. Otherwise, if I don't do it far enough, it kind of pops it off. Okay, I finally got it. That was a tough one. They're usually not that tough. But hopefully, I'm not sure if that'll show up on, I can't tell if you can see that or not. But it bends back and then it kind of tears it. See, I put it over the back part and then I bent it over. And this is the part I had to push back through, the little plastic clamp here. And this clamp shuts the water off when it's coming up and around. But if it's too close to the end here, it'll blow it off. So I need to put it down just a little bit further, but not too much. Okay, one more thing to do in the garden, and I'll show you that in a moment. Okay, so the last thing I need to do is take all my peas down from this row. There's only a couple pods left, and I've been out here eating them fresh out of the garden while I've been working today. You ever eat fresh peas right out of the garden? They are so sweet and tasty. So I just pop them open. And they are so sweet. Makes for a good healthy snack while I'm working out in the garden. I thought I picked these. I missed a couple. They are so sweet. Okay. This was the last end that kept producing. Well, at least pulling them up was quick. I will need to come and haul all this out. Put it down in the compost or something. Since this got kind of a mildewy stuff on it, I don't really want to put it in the compost. So I'll find a place to put it on the bank and burn it or something. Now this other row over here was corn that I planted and it did not come up. So I'm considering, when I plant this in beans here in the next day or two, to go ahead and plant that row in beans as well. We are completely out of green beans in my pantry. I didn't have any do anything last year, so I definitely need a lot of green beans this year that I can. So that's how I determine what's going to go in the garden, how much of it. I, in the past, have grown up to 80 tomato plants for canning tomatoes. I canned a lot last year. I do want enough to be able to fresh eat as much as I want, and also of the paste to make some more spaghetti sauce. I have several jars left at this time, but it is a quick, easy meal that we do enjoy. because the sauce is already done. All I have to do is warm it up and put it over spaghetti. So that is a quick, easy meal. So that is that job. On to the next one. That's going to be a separate video. So I'm going to basically, this is where I'm going to end today's video. Thank you so much for coming along with me, working in the garden today and yesterday. And thank you for watching Jimmy Branch Homestead. If you enjoyed this type of video, please like, subscribe, and share our videos on your social media and with your family and friends. It's the best way that you can help us to grow our channel. Thank you so much for watching Jimmy Branch Homestead.